get started. Thank you everyone for attending tonight. Our first order of business is approval of the agenda.
So move.
Second.
Next item is approval of the October 24th minutes.
Move approval. Second. Aye.
Got that?
No problem.
And tonight, our only item of business is the conditional zoning permit for the Green Park Inn. And the kind of the way the process works, we'll have a staff report and the applicant will make a presentation after that. And then the board will be allowed to have questions either of the applicant or staff. And then even though this is not a public hearing, we still allow public comment. So we'll open it up to the audience and see if you guys have any questions or comments that you would like to make. And then we'll discuss the project further and then make a motion after that. So I guess the next part would be, you want to open it up and
I will
provide the information?
Be glad to, Bill. This is a conditional rezoning request from John Winkler. Property is currently zoned R6M multifamily, and the request is to conditional zoning general business. The applicant is requesting to partially demolish the existing Green Park Inn and salvage and restore parts of the hotel and retain up to 40 of the 88 existing hotel rooms. Additionally, the applicant proposes to construct 12 condominiums and 8 duplex units on the property. A little background. I hope the history is correct. I didn't go a lot into detail, but the Green Park Inn has been in operation for almost 135 years. And in that time, development around it has been mainly residential. In the early 1980s, the property and those surrounding were zoned multifamily residential. And as such, the historic hotel was deemed a non-conforming use, and any property changes were limited to renovations and maintenance. In 2008, the town council adopted a historic properties ordinance as part of the land use code, which allowed up to 50% expansion of non-conforming properties or non-conforming historic properties, including the Green Park Inn, Blowing Rock Visitor Attraction, and the Gideon Ridge Inn through a special use permit. Later, we added conditional zoning, which gave 2 choices for seeking town approval for projects. The applicant has chosen to seek a conditional rezoning of the property to reduce the size of the hotel from 88 rooms to 40, salvage some of the original structure, and add a 12-unit condominium and 4 duplex units, 8 total units, but 4 individual duplex buildings. So first is an aerial, up-to-date aerial of the property. This is an existing conditions and demolition and tree removal plan. Shows the existing green park there. This is the site plan, and I'll get into it more, and I can zoom in if I need to. But in general, the applicant plans to remove sections of the hotel that were not part of the original construction and add back a larger restaurant and wedding venue and event space. The number of hotel rooms will be reduced from 88 to 40, and the historic lobby area and other parts of the main floor will be maintained and restored. That's the intent of the applicant. I spoke with the applicant today, and that's their intent. I'll let them go into more details about what they would like to do and what they've been discovering as they investigated the building. The hotel sections to be demolished will be taken down carefully to salvage valuable materials for reuse on the property. Excuse me. Some of the proposed buildings will exceed 35 feet in height, so an increased street and side and rear setbacks will be required in those areas. As proposed, the project meets all setback requirements. The proposed remodeled hotel will be 50 feet in height, or not to exceed, and the condominium units will be just shy of 50 feet. And that's measured from the primary entrance, would be on the east side of the building is the main entrance. But also there is a garage entrance on the bottom side, which would be the west side of the building. The hotel will be remodeled and renovated in a smaller footprint to remain as close to the original structure built 135 years ago. The design features and materials will remain very close to the style from the 1890s. I'll go back and show architectural renderings and elevations in a moment. And I'll come back, when I do, I'll come back to this section of the staff report. I'll just talk about access first. There are currently multiple access points to the site off Green Hill Road and Highway 321. When the project's complete, there'll be only one access on 321, which would be here. I'm sorry, would be here. This is pretty much where there's one entrance here now, and there's one here, right there, but that's closed off. So this entrance would provide access to the lower side of the condominium units, and then access across the front of the hotel to the parking. And then the other access is on Green Hill coming in. It's currently about right there. Used to be one here too, but they're going to split the difference and come in here, access into the site there. There's an additional access out the back for the condominium units out on the Goforth Road, and that will provide additional fire apparatus access too. The current parking lot is being redesigned to provide adequate parking to serve the hotel and the restaurant and to have parking for the duplex cottages. Parking for the condominium building will be in a surface lot, and both in a surface lot and a covered parking garage on the west side of the building. And that was over here. There's some surface spaces here, and then you can drive into the lower end and park underneath. With all the proposed uses of the project, it requires 132 parking spaces. There's 151 that are proposed, and it's a surplus of 19 spaces. This shows the watershed limits. So half the property this flows to the New River towards the golf course. It flows to the New River Basin. This flows to the Yadkin. So the part that is applicable for watershed limitations is just this half. So this is the way it is today, the impervious surface in the gray, and then the rest is pervious. And then this is what it will be as proposed. There's calculations at the top, and if I remember, it's about, it's not an increase for that portion of the property. I think it's a reduction of about 400 square feet. Is that about right, Jason? So overall, that part that's in the watershed is reduced in its impervious surface. As the property sits along the Continental Divide, and as explained, part of it goes to the New River and part to the Yadkin. There's no stormwater controls currently on the property. There's a few culverts and conveyance measures that move water around, but that's about the limitation of it. The proposed project will, it's a grading plan. This half, the gutter drains and yard inlets and things on this side of the hotel will drain and eventually get to a detention system, which is under the parking lot right here, and then connect to DOT's infrastructure and flow down to the large ditch along 321. But it will be detained, so slowed down and held over a period of time. The other side is collected, the back side of the hotel building, and then flows out this way and connects to the golf course. No real change there because it's limit, the impervious is not increased. It's actually reduced. The applicant also proposes an upgrade along this part of Green Hill Road. There's a little bit of a curb that was put in when the road was widened, 321 was widened and extended to here. The proposal is to open up this interior of the curve on Green Hill, not the real sharp one here, but at least this one. Give a little bit more room in this radius and have curb and gutter and pick that water up and convey it down here instead of just, there's a ditch down there now that's doesn't really work all that great. And then when it gets down here, it flattens out. It's been affecting Oval James property here. So this will pick up a lot of that water and I think improve that situation there. Public water and sewer currently serves the property and that will remain. There'll be some electrical service that is above ground now that serves into the building, and all those changes that will be underground. Garbage collection, they've moved some dumpsters around during our review phase. There's 2 dumpsters here that will be in the parking lot, they'll be screened, and then there's one down here near the condo building. Some existing trees on site that we feel can be saved, especially along Green Hill Road, and I think that's their intent along this edge of Green Hill, to minimize the cut and disturbance here to try to preserve some of those trees. Now, I just saw the other day that one of them fell down, so that one's down. But we're trying to work with the applicant on maintaining as many trees as possible. The proposed landscape is very extensive between the parking lot areas and the buildings along the buffering. And so they also meet the shade requirements for the parking area. They meet that part of the code. We still think that's all right. I'm getting the landscape plan that shows it here. And we think there's certainly some good things about this landscape plan, and we can work with the applicant to maybe even make some improvements beyond this. But we don't have a problem moving forward at this stage with the landscape plan that they have presented. I'll go over and I'll go back through the rest of the slides, but the applicants proposed 2 conditions. 1, no sidewalk required along Green Hill Road, and then allow a density of up to 6 dwelling units per acre so they can construct 20 units. Based on the size of the property, and at 5 units per acre, I think it yields 17. So they'd like to go to 6 so they can do up to 20. Let me go through. So backing up a little bit, 100 and some years ago, and I got these from John, these photographs, and it's a little more grainy as it blows up, but this was the original before it was even painted.
I had an old camera.
Yeah, one with the hood and, so that's what it was in its original form, best I can understand from what I've heard, and it was not painted at that time. This is as it was painted, and when did you say that this photo was probably from? 20s?
So that Model T started, I think, started making them about 1915. So that had to be 1915 or after.
Okay. And then jump to 2012. This is what it looked like 12, 13 years ago. There's a 2-lane road on 321, and then the power lines above that. And then last summer, and then another shot of the building up off Pinnacle Road, Pinnacle Drive Avenue, one of them. This is the proposed hotel rendering, showing that perspective there. Parking in front, a little bit different than the way it is today. There is some parking in front, but not in this orientation. This is a building elevation would be the west side, left side or west side. This is the part that would face the proposed condominium buildings. This would be the front. This would be the entryway into on the bottom. This would be the entryway into the condominium buildings. And then this is a side view. This would be from 321, I think. Is that correct? And then the next shows facing the golf course and where you would drive in underneath the buildings. Not garage doors, but just a parking garage underneath. And so there's 12 units. There's like 1 here, 2, 3, 4. So it's split down the middle. You got 6 on each side.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you go back 2 slides or the bottom? I'm sorry, that one, the bottom. Are those driving aisles into the garage as well?
No,
Okay,
no, that's,
it's just hard to tell with the white.
right, that's just walk up. There would be a lawn there from the hotel over in the sidewalk. Yeah. This is the elevations of the cottages. The top is, I think, the backside. Is that right, Brent? And to the outside, and the inside would be this view here, and then this would just be a side shot. Okay.
Also, I mean, yeah, there won't be shutters. We looked back at the old building, it didn't have shutters, so we're not gonna put them on.
Right.
Yeah.
That was a recommendation that we had talked about. You know, these shutters have no use, you know, and so to take it back the way that it looked, to take those off and just let them stand alone, that would be appropriate. If the shutter doesn't work and it could not cover the window, then we're of the opinion to just take them off. I think that's just lays the groundwork. I'll be glad to answer questions. There's been some questions that have come up from planning board members that I've received this week and have responded back. So if any of those need to be ironed out or discussed, I'll be glad to do that now. And then there may be some questions you have that we'll just maybe have the applicant address when they do their presentation.
I have questions, but I don't know if they're better for you or for
Okay.
the applicant. So
Okay.
perhaps they could do their presentation and then whomever.
If that'd
most
be fine.
appropriate
Sure.
can-
Better. All right. I'll go back and forth as you need.
One thing before we get started, I saw an email from Mr. Rothrock today from Wayne
Wayne Green.
Green, and I just want to make sure you all saw that, the materials. I printed everything and managed to leave it on my printer at the office, so I'm glad you saw it. Thank you for being here. My name is Chelsea Garrett from the law firm of Deal Mosley in Boone, and for those that may not have heard us at the neighborhood meeting last week at the Green Park, the whole development team is here, the applicant team. First, John Winkler, if you just want to raise your hand. Bill Warden, Miller, so I'm saying Mark, sorry. Will Miller, Brent Davis, our architect, Jason Gaston, our engineer, and we do have a structural engineer from Viola and Taylor and Viola, James Tate. We spoke with him today. We had hoped he would be here. He couldn't be here at the neighborhood meeting, but he has had some medical issues and not going to be able to travel up. So he has shared information with us. We've kept him in the loop as he's continued to evaluate the property. So, but what we wanted to start with, we've got a lot of pictures and probably we'll try not to hit all of them, but we do have a lot of information. We can dig deeper as you have questions as needed. I wanted to just start by saying that the project, and you'll hear more about this, started out really early summer last year. And
Like August, we put down a contract late July.
right.
Started our work about first of all.
Right. So in Mr. Winkler's head, I think the vision began before that maybe, as he knew a prior transaction with the Green Park was falling through. And so he, the vision initially and the plan has always been to revive the Green Park. And I think the terms used were the grand old lady, but to revive it. And the vision for reviving it was always to really look at what was there, restore it to the extent possible, and then maybe try to update it to make it a little bit more relevant for patrons of today. That, maybe increase room sizes, do some event space, restaurant, all those kinds of things. So looking at a plan for that. The vision is still to revive it, but after some very deep evaluation, by structural engineer, by the team here. The foundation and other things have a lot of age on it. And so we do have Mr. Tate, the structural engineer, has indicated that it's going to be tough to do a true restoration. And so the plan now is to revive it and to do essentially a reimagining of it so that we can preserve really the history, the look of it, allow people to continue to create memories there. There's not been a lot of life there for a long time. And so the goal is to bring life back to it. And that includes updates, providing a space for folks to come, whether it be a restaurant space, whether it be to hear music, whether it be to have a wedding reception. But in order to do that, they have to do some reimagining of it. And so what you'll hear tonight is what they hope that will allow them to do, and then also add some new dimension to it. So I would ask, I guess, to start, Jason, if you could pop up. Jason is who I think received the first call from the team about how to look at the site. He has helped design the site to bring it in compliance with the ordinance in terms of parking and all the things that Mr. Rothrock just went through. So do you mind coming up? And if you wouldn't mind, just for background, he doesn't need to be sworn since it's legislative, right?
No.
Okay. Just pop up and can you say kind of just in general what you were first asked to do and maybe brief summary of how it's evolved to get to where we are now?
Sure. Kevin, could you go back to the site plan for that meeting? There we go. Go on. So to be clear, my name is Jason Gaston. I'm with Valor Engineering. I'm the civil engineer, the site civil. I'm not the structural, certainly not the architect, and certainly not the visionary. That's these gentlemen here. John contacted me, and the very first rendition was, hey, let's get the survey and get it done, which he provided. And after we got the survey, one of the first renditions and layouts that I did was we kept the entire building, with the exception, I think, John, correct me if I'm wrong, it was I don't know what it's called, but it's essentially where the condo building is
The
now.
wing was going to be torn down.
That was the wing. There was a there it is.
Closest to the golf course.
Thank you. That's right. This wing was going to be removed, and the majority of the existing building was going to be saved. And so the very first plan we did was we drew in some new condos, which you kind of have the same plan idea there to replace this. We redid the parking area here to add more parking. Had some interesting layouts along the front, but even one of them kept a new portico or drive under, and majority of the existing building was kept. Fast forward, I don't know, how many.
We have some drawings from you in middle of October, about 20th October. That's when we got the thing.
We went through a lot of reiterations. So as they dug into it, and John can hop in here more, I like to say that the building shaved itself off. And so there was an original footprint where, because there's some other parts of this that you guys are way more familiar with than me about what was the original, kind of in the back house area, and even part of this here. And so one of the other renditions was, well, there's kind of the heart of the building. I believe this was gone. This was gone, is that right? And so then we were kind of like, well, here's what is more of the original footprint that you saw back in the first black and white, I believe.
1891 or 82, I've seen two.
So, and then what we did was we had a layout where we had adjusted the parking and had a portico, drive under, still just had the condo buildings, and kept the majority of the building with some upfit. Because one of the issues is,
Here's what it looks like. There's only there's no cars in this one. You see, so this is all wagons and horses, and that's what it looked like, say, the turn of the century. And so I said, man, let's just try to go back to that. That's where.
so this area seemed, that was, I don't know, concept 17. And we kept whittling away as they found out more and more information. Of course, if you walk through the building, you can feel some of the concerns. And of course, where the bigger concerns came up later on, is like, well, you know, this entire back portion of this building is underground. It's subgrade. And so as things continue to evolve through October, November, I think that's when you really begin to dig into your studies. And the building continually shaved down, and well, we have what we have now. And that was kind of the progression of how we got to where we got. It was not one plan. It was not 5 plans. It was, I have a lot of CAD files, I'll say, over the past, 6 months, 5 months, whatever that is. And that was just as they continue to dig into the building, what they found. And remember, I'm just kind of the grading and site plan lackey. Like, I'm just following along what these guys and their team, especially Brent and their experts, are kind of leading me to do. I don't really have a lot of input, but I did notice that eventually we got to the point where, hey, this appears to be a new building, essentially. And that's the progression, though. It was not, oh, let's start with this. It was a painstaking lot of time. I mean, I don't know how many plans I've even submitted to Kevin, where I have just personally 5 sets of full construction drawings for preliminary construction drawings for this site, and we submitted the last of the 5. So, because our original ones were supposed to submit in the end of November, December, and so it's been a progression. And I say progression because we're trying to marry historical preservation with progress, and that's tough to do. And so that's where eventually they kind of fell into the site plan as, I'll use the frame, the spirit and the replica, or the feel of the old lady, but you know, it's a new lady. So that's kind of
Okay.
the steps we got to get to here.
Thank you. And if you can, I don't want to make you go back, but you can, you sit where I was sitting. There you go, sit where I was sitting. So, and John, since, or Brent, either way, because James Tate is not here, could you speak to when he was engaged and came up, and what he looked at when he came up?
I think James, when I first, I have to check, but I think he was laid off. And he said, yes, I've been on this building probably 30 years. They've had us doing all kinds of stuff. And they didn't live up to what he recommended on a lot of stuff, but he still said, I know all about this building, I know what you need to do. And so we started sharing our plans with them, and then it really got into a tough situation, and he recommended what he said in the letter.
Mm-hmm.
And like one lady said here, I guess if you have enough money, you can fix anything. But we don't have that.
Well, you might remember you and I were in the parking lot with James, and you said, I've done low building, boom, King Street. I said, what am I getting into? He said, you're getting ready to write a blank check, and you don't know. And I said, well, I'm not sure I can afford to do that. And I'm not sure it makes sense anyway. Whatever we come up with here, it's got to work as a business. It's got to be something guests want to stay at, people want to have events at, we want to revive her. She's a really good word. And it's got to work. And you go over there and look around, a lot of the water runs towards the building, not away. We need to straighten that out. That's what the big problems are. And so we want to have a restaurant and event space on the ground floor that opens out to the outdoors. We want to have a grassy area, plaza. And we want to get events and things going on back there. And all of you, I'm sure, know how small the rooms are over there now. And we looked at, John, we tried to figure out a way to take 2 rooms and make one. And I mean, there's one floor in there that slants 4 inches from one side to the other. So it just wasn't going to work. And we think that the thing to do is just build new rooms and new modern hotel rooms and bathrooms that guests would like to stay in. Preserve the ambiance or atmosphere or whatever that lobby area. So as you go in there, and that lobby's a lot bigger than people build nowadays, you know, but it's a great place for sitting and visiting and having afternoon tea or whatever they want to do there. And keep that ambiance, keep the outside look you saw in the conceptual drawing. And we think bring the place back to life, and people go there a lot. a lot of activity going on. That's what we're aiming to do.
Could you go back to the first
That's what he's doing.
one back?
To the concept, there you go.
You see this left side here on the bottom floor, that's going, we're working with Mr. Nobles right now, and we want to put doors down on the bottom. That'll be opening into this lawn in the backyard right there, and there'll be about an acre of just beautiful lawn back there for people to be able to sit in there, have on their chairs and fire pits and all that kind of stuff. And we can open it, if it's good weather, have an outdoor open all the time. But in the wintertime or in the rainy season, we can close them up and then they'll have a nice warm place to operate for. Like in the summertime, I think warm enough weather, but hopefully we can have a lot of events and have the orchestras and bands, whatever entertainment might be, then everybody be out on the lawn. And the bar would be running bigger, so people just go to the bar and walk right out to their seat in the lawn.
And I believe one of you, I think, Mr. Squires, you asked about, I think one of the pictures that Mr. Rothrock showed was the area of the condos that faces the condominiums. I'm sorry, the condos that face this side of the, yeah. So that's what he was referring to. The lawn would go right up to that building and they would face each other. And that's the area he's referring to. So the restaurant would be looking out over that area. Is that the plan?
The restaurant.
Okay.
The restaurant
Oh,
in the
gotcha.
center of the building.
Okay, so the event space would look out onto that. The 8 cottages that are proposed, there was some discussion about how to orient those. And the reason on the plans, if you could pull that up, if you don't mind. Right, so you can see those are oriented almost like there's a little bit of a common area between them. Those are oriented that way for a couple reasons. Number one, there'll be parking around them. We did not feel that it was the best plan to push those as close to the road as possible just because of road noise. We want to revive this and make it look and feel as much like the old Green Park was, but in those days, as you can see, that they were just transitioning to vehicles and they definitely didn't have a 4-lane highway. So it would not be probably the best decision to have all the residential spaces pushed up against the road. That's why we put them where they are. That's why folks enter and they face each other. And the same goes for how the condominiums are oriented. The plan is to that portico share that is there now was not part of the original building. As you can see from the original building's pictures here, there will be a covered porch, essentially, overhang roof along the front of the building. And that will not extend out over a driveway area. That will just stay, there you go. And then you'll walk into the lobby there that with the same size and feel and everything that you see now. The plan is to very carefully disassemble the building and to use as much of the wood beams. We're not sure that the wood flooring is salvageable. There may be pine underneath, we don't know, but would be to disassemble as carefully as possible so that original materials can be used throughout the rooms and other areas to keep that feel. There have already been discussions, and I believe that a few of the team, I know at least Will and John, maybe Bill, met with Stephen Dragsick from Brom, his curator. They've come through the building to look and see what, if anything, whether it be fixtures, furniture, art, is of historic value. And I think they've already kind of done their evaluation, but they are continued to be invited to be able to come and preserve anything that's there that won't be preserved or used in the hotel. I think that there was an invitation by Mr. Miller at the community meeting to anybody that had anything that was taken out when the auction occurred to let somebody know if there's a desire to have that brought back. But certainly want to restore or keep and protect any of the historical artifacts, any materials that aren't going to be used in the reconstruction. We would want to talk to Brom about, or anyone else using. And the goal here is to try to just breathe new life into this place. There are more details. Actually, I don't know how long that report is, 140-page 130-page structural engineer report that has photographs of the old locust posts down below that are the foundation. As you saw from Wayne Green's letter, those were what was left on the printer, unfortunately, but you can get those from us if you'd like to see them. There is literally, you could stick your hand into the locust posts and pull out chunks of them.
Are you good? That was one thing I was really interested in, was the structural. I mean, I know how bad some of the top floors are, so I can only imagine what's underneath. Are they going to replace those with steel, or is there a plan for that, or how is that?
That's a good question. So I might let Brent speak to that, and also speak to what James has said about that. What will be what will be the framing of the new construction?
The first floor will be on concrete slab.
Okay.
We would have structural steel columns, steel bar joists.
So they're tearing it down.
And then the second floor would have concrete floor to support all the structural work.
Right. So I will tell you that the engineer, which again, we wish he could be here, but he's been up 4 times, I think, is that right? 4 times.
And I've been on the phone with him.
Right, and we spoke to him today, again, just to see if there's any kind of update or thoughts on what, as we reported and represented at the community meeting, the plan has always been to try to keep as much of the lobby area or restore that as we can, feeling that that's the heart of the place. At this point, and I think represented this then, James had made some suggestions on how to do that. What we don't have is numbers on any of that. I mean, those would have to be quoted by contractors. And so, as Bill Warden was just saying, there's still a desire to do that, and we have not totally poo-pooed the idea of doing that. We're still exploring that with Mr. Tate, but we have to get pricing, and it's not possible for them to commit to an unknown figure. This entire plan is contingent upon it being economically viable. It doesn't do anybody any good to commit to that and run out of money a year into it, because we literally have to put that much potentially. So those are the unknowns, and we just want to be very upfront about that. We haven't abandoned the idea of doing that, but we also are not going to commit to an unknown number. So
I've got one other comment. There used to be, I bet there's 20 fireplaces in that place at one time. I think I can save 5 of them. And it'd be nice to have that for the ambiance and mix it in with the restaurant and the bar area and that kind of thing. So we're gonna try our best to do that. That would be a very tedious type thing to do. You're trying to work around the fireplace and keep them going. We think if we're careful, we can save those, and that'd be a nice touch. And come back to the old chestnut, make mantles out of the chestnut around the little fireplace, and just recover all we can.
yeah. Are those, John, you mentioned this at the community meeting, are those fireplaces, a lot of them or all of them even covered up right now?
Yes, a lot.
Okay.
There's 4 I know of that you can get to, but I think there's 2 more that, we'll find out.
And are they all on the ground floor?
Yes.
Okay. And so when you say try to cover those up and use them, would it be keep them exactly as is, or evaluate the structure and maybe use what they're made of and rebuild them just like they were?
We just use, gas
Right,
fireplaces, and we don't have the chimney on.
right.
We'll just save the lower part.
Rebuild the look of it with the parts that are, or the materials that are left.
I do have one question, because you mentioned about the cement floors and all. So basically, what I heard the other night too was that you're going to build a shell around the existing.
Well, that was we're looking into it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's, like James said today, what was it exactly he said?
Considerable expense and risk is what he said. And
Yeah,
so
'cause
we're evaluating what that expense and risk is.
Because I've been part of a lot of historic reservations in New Orleans where we had to cable through buildings just to hold walls up, so.
We'd have to build sheer walls, and it'd be a real deal, but we gotta look at, we wanna do that, we can't afford it.
One of the points he also made, I asked him what he meant by risk, because, and he said, well, not, obviously they would make it a safe structure to work in and build, but he said the risk being that there would have to be a little temporary roof membrane put on because the upper floors, everything around the lobby core would be removed, including the upper floors above it.
You'd have to.
And the risk is that temporary roof is not, it's not a load-bearing roof. It's not a roof that can withstand sharp objects. And if there's any issue where weather gets in, then you've literally got the lobby exposed and getting rained on. So there's all kinds of things that are involved in it. So the feasibility of it is what is still being evaluated. So.
Excuse me. And then one reason too, the rafters, the old rafters are, a lot of them are broken and no bracing under them. Maybe half the rafters have bracing in the roof. I don't know how they held up so far. And there's a lot of moisture penetration down from the ceiling, the walls, and even up through the floor now. So it's
Right.
it's a job.
Well, I was interested in what Mr. Green said in his letter, that we already mentioned the fact that the rear portions are sub-grade, but he said his father, I think, had to trench in order to get to the areas where water would collect in order to pump it out. But most interesting was that the building was never built and intended to be open in the winter. And I think that that's pretty telling, as old as it is, and the winters like we've had, including this one, the wiring and such. So we just wanted to be very transparent that our goal is to revive it, and it may be more of the spirit of it than it is the actual physical current structure. And that is why they felt it was very important to try to revive the look of it and make it including no shutters on windows if necessary, including to make it as historically accurate in a way as they can. That's the roof line, all the things about it for the most part. Brent has talked about trying to design, when they get into the detail of this, trying to have even molding, all of it to be the accurate and indicative of the historic era. So there's all kinds of internal finishing features that can be used and try to do that, to have that grand feel. And as Bill said, the grand feel of that lobby is the height of the ceilings, the size of it is definitely something they're hoping to either keep or rebuild as substantially the same as it is. So,
another thing, when they put this, if we go that route, either way, we're gonna put it steel and concrete first floor. But the steel has to go right through our building. It's like you got a structure there and you run the high beams through there, so that's gonna open it up all kinds of, and that's another.
right,
We know that.
right.
We haven't searched every possibility.
Right.
We're beginning, we've got a few months to try to figure that out.
I think it was just important, very important for this group. I mean, understand there's lots of very strong feelings, as we just saw, about this place, and the very ideal hope of saving it exactly like it is. And one of the things that I think is important is for you to see, and this is why we wish James Tate was here, but genuine, very good faith effort and lots of expense has gone into, for the past 6 months, thank you, to trying to go with that original plan. And then, as Jason mentioned, it kind of got whittled away and changed as feasibility was sort of continued to be examined. But there was definitely not ever lip service given to that. It was always the plan and the intent. And yes, it has evolved. But we're not here to give lip service or pretend that we're not trying to be practical. We are trying to be practical. But we haven't given up on that idea. Same as we said last week, we're still going to try to do that. And James Tate is still going to advise them on that. He obviously has a long history with the building and knows it fairly well. But we just, we thought it was important to be very clear on that. The finished product, we hope, will be very honoring of what the Green Park was. But we genuinely feel that the Green Park Inn was so wonderful for its era because it was a gathering place. And it was of a size that it was inviting, and things have changed. The 4-lane highway out front, it's extremely old, hasn't been I think the current owner has done a lot of great things to it, so not saying anything about Mr. Iris, but for 100 years not been well maintained means you've got a lot of issues. And so we want to give it new life, but that might just mean we give it new life and honor it, and maybe have tributes to it in all the ways that we can inside and out.
And give it another 130 years of life.
Right. So,
I got a practical lesson in this. My wife and I went to Ireland in early December. We were gonna go in October, but you know what happened. So we went in December to stay at Old Edwards Inn. Stayed in the original part. That's not exactly an inn or store. That building did different things over the years, and worked with Jill and everything else. That's a beautiful place. We stayed in the original part, expensive room. In the bathroom was signs that said, please let the spigot trickle so the pipes don't freeze. So I don't want to go there. I want to have something that we can maintain, keep up and operate, and will last, as you're talking about, another 100 years.
Yeah.
Anybody can speak, even us. Just come up and speak, 'cause we're trying to record it.
They're gonna record it so it can be,
I got you.
yeah. That's my fault. I wanted to mention, I don't know if there's any examples, James Tate mentioned that just in general, that he's worked on a number of older projects, where they, started at different, points trying to save portions or all. It evolved, there were sort of reimaginings of things, and he talked about folks, or, sites in Hendersonville, Asheville, Nashville. And you were sharing, there's been a lot of research done by this group of what are some example historic properties where they either did a partial or whole renovation but kept, or they reimagined and reconstructed. Hesitate to use the word replica because that can be subjective a little bit, but you'd mentioned there's a place, I think the Bellevue Inn in Florida. That was a reimagining. I think that was a rebuild. But there's some other ones. We wanted to throw them out only because they've done a lot of research into other beautiful properties that are hospitality properties, hotels, combinations of private and hotel properties. And those have done a great job of clearly depicting an era architecturally and otherwise, and we'd like to try to do the same thing. So that was one, Bellevue Inn in Florida. I know that it's a little different, but the Highlands, what you call it? The Old Edwards Inn. So they've got sort of an old section and then lots of new around. But are there any questions for the team?
Yes, and again, if Kevin's more appropriate to answer some of these, that's fine too. Maybe some of this directed toward Jason. Both Kevin Moore and then y'all talked about the drainage on the site. I've got a couple questions with that. I mean, just conceptually with the watershed part, moving water from the, I guess, Mississippi basin, whatever the basin that goes to the New River is, over to the Yadkin. Is that not some kind of a permitting issue, or does the state not care about that?
I'll speak from general engineering. No, we do that quite a bit. You're going to take, let's just say, I think the general drainage basins were 2 acres and 3 acres. We take a couple of 1/10 of an acre, half an acre here, move it to this watershed. Considering the size of the watershed, it's pretty customary to do that.
Good. So speaking of a different kind of history, like a lot of the different books talk about this site as where the cottages are intended to be, as where the spring for the Yadkin River was, like the headwater, and there was a spring, and probably why they put the hotel there in the first place. But on the site right now, there's a big box and a standpipe off in that corner where you now are putting drainage. Have y'all looked at that and made sure that's going to work?
We have I have an old picture of the well, but it was right across from Mr. James' house. It was down on the well where they had a path. Matter of fact,
Yeah.
I've got a picture of the old cottages that there's a trail walking
Yeah.
down to that thing, it would be closer to 321 where that water was, not on the backside. Like
Okay.
I always heard what you said, but according to the picture I have is right in front of, just to the right of Mr. James' house. And they had a little cedar shaped building down there, people go down the well down there. Yeah, you see the trail walking down there in front of it.
Okay.
Just pass that way.
So what is that box that's there in the corner?
That is Lewis Electric as a big transformer.
Oh, okay.
Put all that in for the traffic lights and all that stuff.
Well, this is, no, the old, like up in the,
Right.
yes, right there.
Right there.
Is that?
No, I know it's a little standpipe.
Is a standpipe there? It looks like a drainage structure, and so I mean, if you haven't gotten into it, that's fine, but,
I'll tell you where we are with this. We're obviously relocating a large portion of the water from around Green Hill and around.
mhm.
Wait, let me get to this.
Just got the drainage plan to be. Yeah. Here, because there's an existing pipe that does run through the site.
Mhm.
That was one of the biggest things, was like, well, does this have any kind of historic value? And, well, at least it's been picked up from survey, and what's been relayed to me is no, it's carrying street water from further up. So, because there's an existing catch basin here, that you may have seen on ground, that's carrying the water from here. So we are rerouting that around. There's also the existing catch basins that are in this corner, which was something that was brought up to me, is like, well, this area has a lot going on utility-wise, drainage-wise, there's pipes coming in here. This is an area we probably want to tie into, but not do much with. Where you're talking about, I don't have any information on that. I'll tell you where we are though, which is pretty common. When we discover something, we'll adjust to that. If we have to move the stormwater system and orient it this way, it keeps the drainage basin the same. So I have been given no information about what that is from any survey that's been done, and the surveyor was out there. I mean, yeah, because there was a lot going on with the drainage that we had to figure out just to reroute existing storm that was running through the site. As far as the headwaters go, I can't really speak to that. I've heard different opinions about where it is, and I don't have any concrete information. But I would assume that we'll find it at some point and we'll have to address it. But I'm not too concerned about this structure. This can easily be moved and oriented differently as far as the underground detention goes.
The curbing, not on the part that's perpendicular to 321, but around the corner.
Here, on Green Hill.
Yeah, I'm good all the way through the radius. I understand what Kevin said, and widening the radius there, or shortening it, whatever. But what's the thought on the curbing? Is it going to be from where the pavement ends today into the road and moving the road across the street, or are you going into the trees? So I don't know how much you've looked at that personally, but there's not a ditch there. It's the edge of pavement. It's a built-up shoulder with tree roots right there. And I believe, I'm going to finish the thought to be comprehensive with it. I believe the intent was to save those trees, and trying to understand how that also relates to the proposal to put a curb in there, like where the curb is, and if you're going to dig up the tree roots to put a curb in.
To do the curb? It is.
Right. So what do you want to respond, since it's the town's request to do it, isn't it? Just off on the.
I'd like to just go ahead and answer part of this.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of conversation we had.
Yeah.
There's always going to be risk associated with tree balls and, tree root systems when you're dealing with construction. I've shown trees to be removed here for kind of the same reason. How much the tree root's going to be cut out when we're doing construction, how much is going to be left to be maintained. In general, if you're disturbing more than half of a tree system, as far as its roots, I'm going to consider it's going to die in the next 5 years. We're talking about curb and gutter. First of all, we're going to saw cut a clean edge. So it's not going to be exactly where the edge of pavement is. We'll have to move that, let's just say 8 inches, 10 inches, somewhere in there. And then we're going to attach to that new saw cut 30-inch curb. So we're basically going to move everything back roughly 2 feet. That's the difference in what you're seeing. Now, will there be some disturbance when we dig in for the pipe system that's carrying that? Absolutely. What is the long-term peril for those trees in that? I mean, we're talking about cutting a trench through a tree root system that's probably typically the same diameter as the canopy. Is it gonna wind up killing the tree? Potentially. But this is one of the great discussions. Do we try to just go with it and keep them there under the assumption that we're not gonna do enough damage, and then in 5 years, he's not gonna have to come out here and cut them down? It's the same with the trees along here. There's a lot of trees that have been requested to be saved here and here. In my world, I wanna cut them all down, but I'm an engineer. I'm interested in long-term, making sure they're not falling on people's roofs or on cars. So that was kind of a long discussion to say, the intent is to say, will they last? I can't answer that. Are we disturbing enough of the root bed where I'm concerned? Not really. We're disturbing less than half of it. If we are coming in and overlaying on top of more than half of the root mass, I'd be a lot more concerned. But considering we're just basically cutting a trench for the stormwater, and also on top of that, essentially the same line of the curb and gutters where the drainage system is going, we're not disturbing an area that's half the size of the canopy. It's probably a quarter the size of the canopy. So I don't have any, equation or thing to pull out here and say it's definitely going to live, but the intent has been to save them. And from what we're seeing, we're not destroying enough of the root mass to consider them just to be dead. But we can certainly look at taking them down or replanting something smaller further away. I think the applicant is certainly open to any of that. There's always this weird discussion too, because when a canopy is 20 feet in the air and we're talking about cars that are driving on Green Hill, is it really even providing enough buffer anyway? Maybe it's a good opportunity to cut them down and start over as it is. So I think all that's available for discussion. There's neither one of those is more, depending on your opinion, is better than the other. I personally like the last one because we'll be able to move them a little further away. They'll be smaller in nature and we don't have to worry about them, but that's just my opinion.
I was gonna ask if Kevin could speak to the impetus for having that curve softened and that coordination between the town and the applicant. I mean, that's a desire, or it was a suggestion to try to make that curb softer just for traffic since it is such a tight one. But I don't know that I think it's a requirement, you're good. I think it's a requirement, right? But we aren't proposing it, in other words, as part of our project. It was just a discussion the town felt like it would be
I
good.
actually understand the
Yeah.
curve.
We
That was
understand.
not my question.
Let me answer. We were concerned more about trying to gain a little space inside that curb radius. We did not request curb and gutter. We didn't talk about it. We didn't plan for it. That was the design of the engineer. I think the idea, and Jason can correct if I'm off, is to try to pick up some of that drainage on that part of the curve, of that part of the road as it comes down out of the sharp curve, and try to pick it up before it gets down there. It was causing some issues down, at least when you get down to Oval Jane's front yard. Now, he's got curb and gutter across the front, which has addressed some of it. But as that water gets down there to that concrete interchange and it gets down to that drainage, it kind of flattens out and we get some sediment piled up there, and that's kind of what's happening. We think it might pick it up better. Be very tough to, if that curb line moves much, it's going to be very difficult to save trees. From a staff perspective, we're about saving as many as we can.
Right.
But we're not, from the engineer standpoint, that wants to cut them all down. And that's why my comments about landscape plan is preliminary. We're not saying this is ready to go, because we think there's some opportunity to save some trees that will be worthwhile. I'm not about saving that big pine that just fell on Roger McGuire's house. We're not talking about that.
No.
But there's some opportunity to save trees. From a staff perspective, we feel like there's more value in that than there is planting all new. But they go hand in hand. Planting some new with saving as much as you can of the old is ideal all the way around.
Do we know the health of the trees?
No. Some are good, like I mentioned,
A couple came down in the storm.
one fell down the other day. No, we're not out there evaluating it. We just know that they're there. And if
They
they're,
don't look too healthy.
some don't, that's for sure. Some in that back corner, when you get up near the curb, right there, those are in pretty bad shape. And we're not trying to get anyone to save a tree that's not very healthy. It would not be wouldn't make any sense.
I think we all agree mature trees look better. I mean, they just do, so it's just a matter of weighing the health.
The
Yeah.
one question that was asked about the watershed, I think, or not the watershed, but the headwaters of the Yadkin. I think it's unique because it's on this property, but there are thousands of headwaters to the Yadkin River.
Yeah, I think it was the spring nature of it, not the
Right.
headwater nature. It was the concept that
And
there.
there's multiple springs. If you go up through Thunder Hole and not Thunder Hole, but below that, and
Yeah. No, I get it.
there's a lot in there. But it was unique because there was one on the property that was a spring that was utilized by the.
So Kevin, and then I'll be done, but it wasn't staff's suggestion to put the curb and gutter up past the curve. Given a minimum of 2, but knowing how construction goes, it's probably 3 feet of digging off into those trees.
Yeah.
I mean, from staff's perspective, if you have an opinion as staff, should that section have a curb and gutter on it or not?
Doug? Doug Chapman? Yes. What, you've looked at that, in your opinion, is it better for that curb and gutter laid along that section of Green Hill for handling the water that's coming down through there?
It would be better for the site than to take it through the site.
Correct.
Because you want to divert the water around the site so that when you detain the water on the site, you're just detaining the water on the site.
Yeah, I got all that. I mean, I just, in total with staff, I mean, if those trees go away in a year because of this, was it worth it? And if the answer is we don't have an
Probably it's
opinion,
also-
that's fine.
Yeah.
If you don't have an opinion, that's okay too.
I don't want to give you it depends. There's good to both. If the condition of the trees is, and they're getting towards the end of their life, then we would want to put the curb in and augment the landscape buffer there with some new stuff. There will be a lot required to screen the back of the dumpster that's right there in that area too. So maybe that's a good opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you.
I do want to make sure we're all on the same page about the curb and gutter and why I did include it for a different reason, which is we had to reroute from here, this box around. I was already bringing the pipe this way as it was, so it made sense to me to not only have the curb and guardrail. I'm not sure if you saw, there's also guardrail there.
I didn't see this.
So we're adding curb and guardrail for safety reasons. But also to go ahead, and since I already had boxes here, it made sense to me to add the curb and gutter as well, because we already have the pipes in place to put it into something. So, now again, what's that do with the trees? You've heard my opinion about it. I'd rather plant new ones, but again, that's totally open for discussion. I have said my opinion about it.
Any other questions? How high is the existing building right now from a code situation?
My understanding, I think this is in Mr. Rothrock's staff report, is
50 feet is what I've read. Is that?
50, and that it's, and that one, I think it was one portion, other than the cottages, the hotel and the condos will be close to exactly that. Is that right?
Yeah,
The exact
proposed,
numbers.
yeah.
Proposed, yeah.
Right at 50 on the hotel and.
Is that what it is? What I'm questioning is, what is it right now?
It is-
What is it today?
I thought that's what was in there. I thought that's what it said. Hang on. Brent, do you know
He said
what the
close.
current height of the structure of the, sorry, that's the proposed. Sorry, I apologize. What's the current height?
The proposed height from the entry level is 50 feet.
What's the current height?
Existing time.
I don't know.
Okay.
I say it's pretty darn close to 50.
We need to probably confirm that, because I understand you want to see the difference between what it currently is. I mean,
Well, from what it looks like is that the condominiums and the renovation of the Green Park are gonna be about the same height. So that it's gonna look equal there, which is a good presentation. But my concern is how high it is now, because it's a 3-story building with a peak up there, you know? So I'm assuming that peak is probably that high. And since you're asking for the variance, which would allow the 50-foot, I believe, Kevin, am I correct? Going
No
to the-
variance.
no variance.
Well, you're asking for us to, if I'm reading it right,
Density.
Density.
okay, it was the density thing, okay. I'm sorry. So the question I have is if it's the same height, or if we're going 10 feet higher or 10 feet, you know, because we're trying to replicate, if you are able to maintain the exterior skin, which hopefully you will be able to maintain the exterior skin and composure of it. I've been in construction long enough to know that you can't always say that, but you would be at the same height as you are right, as it is right now.
If I may, what is your definition of skin?
The exterior facade.
Well, the skin is all on the side.
No, he's talking about
No.
height. He's not talking about
Talking about-
literal materials.
Oh, it'll be.
Your presentation right there looks like the original, looks like,
Yes, sir.
okay? What I'm saying is that, is it gonna be the same height and the same appearance as it is right now? Or are you gonna go 10 feet higher? Are you gonna,
I think it's pretty close to the same. I flew my drone over there, my son did, and I thought we were shot, but I think it was.
Is there a way to figure
very
that
close
out?
to 50. I can't remember that what the difference it was. The first floor's got to be about 14 feet tall,
mm-hmm,
and your roof, that's got about 8-12 pitch on it, so it's, but that building's about 30-some feet deep, so that'd be about 12 feet to the peak of that, so there's 26 feet, plus 2 floors of building, which would be at least 10 feet pieces.
that's
I think
46.
46 feet, something like that.
Minimum.
The elevator, okay, it's a little bit higher. I'd say this main gable, see, it may be a little higher than that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I forgot what it was, we did it, well, there on purpose,
We will find that out, and we can send a message to Mr. Rothrock, and he can share that, but we'll find out.
And we talked about design features of materials that were, that, you know, we want to do it as it was 135 years ago, as close to replication or reimagination of it as it was 135 years ago. So what is the exterior facade going to be? Or is it going to be the vinyl that it is now, or are you going to go back to the wood?
It's gonna be wood,
Sorry, I'm
and,
going the wrong way.
little scallop stuff, what we're putting the scallop stuff just like they got in there. It's
Right.
Wood side. We have, I don't know if it's, I gotta measure it, but I believe we're gonna use 6-inch siding, which would be a 7-inch board.
Right.
We would have about 6 inch to build, just whatever this building is, it'll have the same build, not what the vinyl siding is, but what's under it.
But that's, have you looked underneath it to see what,
Well, since it's not ours, we have.
well, you know, Midnight Raiders can do that, but I know you wouldn't. Okay. Okay. And then the other question I had is on the cottages. They look very vanilla and very unattractive in the way that you have them right now, because they're pretty much flat and plain. You don't even have an awning over the door, like, you know, for rain protection, you know, to go into the doors. Is there an option for you to do a little bit more architectural facade on that than just
I agree
a
with
box?
you. I agree with you. The porch does give you about 8 foot. That little front, each one of that
Right.
little porch, they're 8 by 10, so they sit out there in the rocking chairs and all that, but that does protect them somewhat after you get off the sidewalk. But you can't protect them all the way, but I agree with you 100%. I haven't been satisfied. This is about the 6th drawing I've had, and we're limited, to space down there.
Right.
We're trying to stay in the 1,350 square feet, they're 3 bedroom, 3 bath, and just trying to make it comfortable, but I don't
Yeah.
like to make it
Well,
Are there features you'd like us to try to
well,
see if we can?
what, you know, I'm assuming the top part, as I read it in here, is is the back part and you enter through the porch? Is that what you're saying?
The entries through the porch? Yeah.
No, but where's the main entrance to that cottage?
Right there on the right, on the bottom. There's
The
no-
porch.
The porch,
Yeah.
okay, and what's, at the top is the back of it, what's the door that's there?
That's the living room, coming out of the living room downstairs and walking up to the back.
Okay, because that's where it's just a flat, there's no, you know, if you walked out in the middle of a rain, you have no awning or anything. I understand the front porch of it, but it does look kind of plain, is what I'm saying. It looks very vanilla, and it doesn't have, it has a gable on each side, but you got those little front things that match the Pelk out point, but there's no, it would be nice to have a little gable in the front of that, up front, instead of just that little that little knockout for the third floor window.
You can see the element, see the scallop and the gable on this one over here, the scallop.
Is that a shed dormer?
No, I don't see a scallop.
It's
I
right,
can't, maybe my eyes
there's
are
some
not as
right
good.
there. These are the scallop look right
That's
there.
what's on the elbow.
Okay.
And that's what we're gonna put on.
Okay.
We're gonna make those look like a hotel.
All right. I just want to make sure we get a little bit of a better aesthetic. Yeah, because you might rent them better that way, but it looked pretty plain the way it was.
They do. Now, we do have a picture of them. Is that it up there? The duplexes with the yard in front of them. Yeah, that's it, showing that. That's what it looks like. We have about 50 feet between them.
Mm-hmm.
That would be, this is not to scale. That's kind of what they look like.
Right.
Except there's each yard will have, each little person will have I think it's about 50 feet apart, and the sidewalk go right down the middle, and they walk down the middle of the restaurant. But I agree with you 100%.
Okay. Now, there've been a mention, one more thing. There's been a mention about the springs. And I happened to run into a spring on my lot here, because I think I'm part of the New River headwaters, as Kevin found out, made me put a drainage ditch in there. But are those, from the engineering standpoint, we put reverse type catch basins that at the level of the spring and ran the water out to the city drainage. Is that kind of what you're looking for, or what type of method of retaining the springs from having water coming up through that base, their floor lines?
There's a couple of ways to do it. One is kind of what you're talking about, a perforated catch basin essentially that has an outlet. You can also do it similar almost to a septic system where you'll have multiple perforated pipes that it can leach into and then drain out. A non-perforated pipe, either of those or anything similar to that is acceptable to tie into the system. So until we kind of get in there and see what kind of yields it's providing and how much water it's actually pumping out of there, I really don't know what the best application would be. But it'd be something very simple, probably a perforated box or perforated series of pipes that tie into a box.
What do they have now? Do you know, or is it just natural, just going into everything?
It looks like, I've been told, I hadn't called that over there, and other people. It looks like it just runs wild over the middle and down to the golf course, that lake on the fifth hole. And the golf course picks it up when it gets on their land.
Yeah.
It's hard to, there's so much undergrowth there, it's hard to, till we start grading, I don't think we'll know. The deal, I'm sure we'll hit it, but, I talked to some guys, that have worked there with the fire department for years, and people, farmers that have worked on this, that a live spring.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
and look at it, it's just so wet and that down there, of course, that could be coming in from the pad. Everything around it slopes toward the building, and all that water may be coming down just down the side of the bank, into the house. It's not graded very well.
Thank you.
Just want to be clear, you may have touched on this earlier. So the new foundation of the old hotel portion will be concrete. So will all the skin and frame have to come down to accommodate that, or, okay. Yeah, so that's what I thought. I just didn't know if you were gonna try to do.
If in fact we can't save with the steel beams, we're gonna have steel beams anyway. But saving the thing from weather or a carpenter dropping a tool down through the top, I mean, there's a million things can happen to it. And then the weather would ruin it. And so I talked to Skipper Green Construction today, and he said, well, I don't know how you do that. And he's been through everything. He did a project for a mass store, only 2,300 square feet. And 22 years ago, it cost $750,000 to do that little foundation. And he said, I don't envy what you got to do. So, but he said he would lend his knowledge too. He's friend, good friends. And maybe after we uncover some stuff, we can figure out a little bit better process. You know, it's shooting in the dark right now.
Any other questions? All right. At this time, we'll open it up to the public, and just remember when you're addressing the board to speak from the lectern, state your name and address for the record. The speaker's comments or questions must be relevant to the topic and the purview directed to the board. No speaker may directly address the applicant or city staff or members of the audience. Such comments and inquiries should be solely directed towards the board, and in turn, we'll ask those. So at this time, I'll open it up. Anyone that would like to speak? Yes.
I don't know what I can even remember what I want to ask. I'm Jamie Dixie. I tell
Where you from?
I live in Blowing Rock on Norwood Circle.
And I'll move around the plans if you need me to.
Okay, I don't need that. Let me see. The first thing that I wanted to ask is every time John talks about giving it another 130 years, which is exciting. What I wonder is what the alternative is. If we don't do anything with that building, how much life does it have left in it? What's likely to happen? Will it fall in? Well, you know. Does anybody know?
It won't get any better.
I'm sure that.
Yeah. I
I
don't think
can't
anybody's
talk
got a
to
crystal
him.
ball.
I
Anybody
realize
that wants to address it from y'all's team, what you know about the building and what you think the likelihood is if do nothing is the option.
Well, I think I think what Wayne Green said today, which Ms. Dixie's not privy to, might be helpful because Wayne's father, and I guess maybe even other generations, older generations of families, apparently worked there, and I mean, his grandfather, I think, helped build it, he said. In his statement, I don't want to paraphrase, so I'm going to pull up his letter, but his statement was, you got it.
No, I was gonna maybe
I've
get
got
you
it
to the
in front of me.
microphone.
I've got it.
Thank you, Jennifer.
I've got it.
Here you go.
Do you want me to read this?
Well,
I can.
maybe read the portion that's
That-
responsive to
that
what she said.
Last paragraph.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the one before that too. The ironic thing is that the new part is the most easily fixed with the fewest problems in keeping it going, which I guess is the wing down on Go Forth. There are so many problems with trying to maintain the building that eventually there's not going to be anyone willing to put up the vast amounts of money that it takes to keep it going. Saving a portion of the original is about the best that can be done. And Wayne referred to his four-time great-grandfather, great-great-great-grandfather helped build it. 4 generations of his family worked as caretaker of the property. So, and Wayne shared a lot of historic photographs. He said he's writing a book about it. And Wayne used to be in my position 20-some years ago, but he's got a lot of history.
That helps me because every time we talk about it, I mean, at some point, obviously, if we don't do something, the building's gonna cave in or something. I don't know what happened to the farmhouse restaurant, but apparently at one point, you know, it got to the point where it couldn't be saved either. And I hear people, you know, weeping about losing that. And so what I was trying to figure out was how long would that hotel stay there if we did not do what John's talking about doing now? Second thing I wanted to ask is, and if you will ask John, how does this work? Does he still own that hotel? I mean, after he gets done doing this, does he operate the hotel or does somebody buy the building that he has created and operate a hotel there? Is that how it works?
Do you mind if I respond?
No?
So,
I don't know who to talk to.
so no, you're fine. I know, you're just following your instructions, right?
Okay, yeah.
So, no, that is really one of the main, I think, great points of this group is that they're all local. They are going to continue to own it and operate the hotel and the cottages, which really are kind of really more like hotel rooms for families. I mean, they're going to be rented as if they're part of the hotel. The condominiums will also continue to, well, they may sell the condominiums, they may rent them. I think the plan right now is to sell them, but they would be managed as part of the group that manages the hotel. So they're not going to be subdivided, this group. They're keeping it, managing it. They've already talked to a restaurateur to come in and open a restaurant in it. But no, they're not selling it.
Okay.
And they want to maintain control over the condominiums as part of it because they're really on the same campus.
Okay.
It's kind of all one campus.
I've worked with projects like this before, and I love this kind of project because it's so interesting, and I'm a marketing person, and it's got so many interesting things about it that could be marketed. And the one other thing that I wanted to say was, if this thing goes through and you do this, please hold on to those the headwaters, whatever you call them, because those are a great marketing tool. And to do all of the things that you're talking about doing to get all of the events and everything going, you need all the help that you can get. And every time I have a visitor in Blowing Rock, I take them down to the Continental Divide and I say, now the interesting thing is here, the Yadkin River flows out to the Atlantic and the New River flows north, and they all know the New River because they whitewater rafted up in West Virginia, and they can't believe that this is the headwaters of it. So I'm just saying, if this goes through and you do try and, you know, develop all of this, don't let those headwaters go, because even if you just put a little gazebo over them, like the Greenbrier Inn or the, you know, that you can call them a spring and use them as marketing material. I went to the Greenbrier Inn this year and to the Grand Hotel Mackinac. And they are, you know, big examples of what you're trying to do. So it's all very interesting to me, but I understand the historic significance and why so many people are, you know, have strong feelings about that. And I think that the fact that you did the meeting, the neighborhood meeting, was a really good idea, you know, to get people thinking about this and not wait until it gets to the voting process before they can express their opinions and feel like they've had some involvement in it. So.
Can I answer two of your questions?
Mm-hmm.
Come up here. See, he gets away with that.
It's good about that lectern up there.
I don't know, but everybody's a little afraid of it, huh?
See, that's my problem too, John.
He was gonna say the foundations are failing.
So that's what you expect, what do you expect in 5, 4, 3 years? Some of the levels must have leaned about 63 angles. And they didn't put them in there like they had the bottom dropped out. And the other one, I can't remember, what was your question about?
How long would it?
The spring.
The headwaters?
How long would it take for it to essentially become unusable?
But just because you got failing foundations, there's no telling.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, I don't remember that.
That's okay. That's all right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Chelsea, may I? Several have asked about short-term rental in the condos. Could you address that for us?
So the condos, the plan right now is to sell the condos to individual owners. We actually had a discussion about this week. John's statement was, you're gonna come up for this one.
There we go, he's up.
Okay.
If we sell them, we don't want anybody else renting them. You don't know what'll come in there. So we're going to keep control. Our POA is going to control everything there, and we'll be the ones that'll rent them to the right type of person. We're not just renting to anybody that comes along, because you owe that to the owner. If you were to buy one, Tom, and you want us to, you got to protect the property overall, and the more we can protect it, the better it's going to be for everyone. And the owners of the condos, it'll just assure them of always having the value and the little. And the reason we thought of the cottages, Sue Glenn gave me a picture, and I saw those are those old cottages. So that's where we came up with that idea about just a month ago. So I agree with the look of them, but we want to control the whole thing forever and ever. And we're all members. I'm Blowing Rock. Everybody lives in Blowing Rock, and we want to be a legacy for us, not only for Blowing Rock. My children, they call me Duna. I want my grandchildren. It's passionate to me, and I love Blowing Rock now, so it means a great deal to all three of us. I just hope y'all understand that, and I'll shut up.
From a zoning standpoint, there would be no restriction from our end. Because it is short-term rental today.
Right.
It's a hotel.
Right.
Has been. And then the zoning that they're asking for is general business. So that zoning would take away the non-conforming nature of the hotel in that area. And as I pointed out, the hotel had been there long before we had any zoning. But how they manage it is up to them from a hotel, because it's short-term, all of it, the whole property.
Okay.
How they do it, and that, I don't know that from a zoning standpoint that the town would have stipulations on how you rent it, because it is that nature of the rental period. But how they manage it, I understand that they would want to have control so that their product is consistent throughout the hotel, the duplex, and the condos. Does that answer that part?
It does, yeah, sure does.
I have one more question, Kevin, with reference to the condominium areas. In the rendering that I saw, the condominiums are brown looking in the background. And I know that's kind of a color scheme that the developer has, and the Manors and the Gateway and all. I'm just wondering if that's, next to the white hotel, the white cottages and.
The reason we did that,
Yeah.
I don't want people coming from the country club or going toward Lenore, look up there and identify us with the condos up on the hill. I want us to be separate. It's just a stark white up through there. And I just want our condos to be different.
Okay.
And you know where my Manor Hotel is?
Oh, yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, that's the color. The guy that's still in this rendering, not the same guy we're using. I can't get him. I'm colorblind. I can't get him to do what I want with exactly like I want. It's my fault. But we're trying to make it the same colors as the Manor.
Mm-hmm.
They're more muted. It's more muted than Manors. The Manor's more muted, like lighter a little bit. It's not super dark.
I'm not sure. I don't know about all that, but I love that look.
I haven't seen that till now. I mean, that
Yeah.
I think looks better
Do
than
they
the
look-
rendering. I
That
mean, not
look better,
rendering,
but
this-
the
this
rendering
right
it.
there.
The question is I know we have set some paint colors and some stone colors and all in our ordinances for the downtown development section. I was wondering if we would use the same type of, if they would use the same type of development colors and schemes that we have in the downtown development areas.
I think we should. Yeah.
Well, the colors are any commercial. They don't just apply downtown, they apply on the other side of town. Condominiums over at Shops on the Parkway or up on Chestnut,
Right.
They're applicable all the way through.
All the way through.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
know the stone at the country club, when they built the new pro shop?
Yeah.
I love that stone, and that's what I wanna put on, but,
Okay.
and, we can talk about adopting that color, but then that's a little bit copycat, but, I think doing just what you suggested, we'll get something that, he'll approve it.
Yeah, I'll tell you this, early on, when I looked at this, I thought, this needs to tie in with the Green Park. I think it needs to be some of those materials, but now after looking at that, with the designs, I understand that direction of, let's separate this part out because it faces the country club and is involved in that. And as John pointed out, not identifying with the white, the old Green Park Inn condos that were tied with that and being separate. But then the duplex units, the cottages would be similar in design and nature. And I think you could bring in some of the little things that are on the hotel and maybe put those on it and just make them a little bit more compatible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
I'm
you.
not sure that makes sense, but that was my reasoning.
Yeah, it didn't look good on that other rendering. It just looked like a sore thumb sticking out there. That looks a little bit better than.
Well, he didn't change, I was worried him to death every day, and that was the old color he left on the other rendering where you see the distant shot of it,
Yeah.
and he didn't put this color on there. I thought he was confused, but we're gonna comply with what you guys want. I just can't put my finger on it there. It has to be pretty in a lot. She would have signed the other.
All right. Any other comments? Okay. Mr. Page.
Good evening. I'm Mike Page, 407 Country Club Lane. I grew up in Blowing Rock and in Pinehurst and lived with iconic properties that the Carolina Hotel, Pinehurst Inn, and the properties in Blowing Rock. And I think that brass tacks would be that the hotel would be a tear down without the sorts of things that have been proposed this evening. If it's a tear down, that property would probably lend itself to condo development, that kind of thing. But I think we have an opportunity for an iconic property to be done in the best way possible by someone who's done it before, understands the issues, and is willing to commit the resources. So I hope that you will approve this. Thank you.
All right.
I have one more question again. Being in construction, sometimes we don't know what our cost is. I tell people to expect a 40% increase of what the builder gives you to start a building. My question is that right now you don't know what is going to happen even in your own proposal. Is there a point once we make a commitment to you and once the council approves your projections, if so be done by the council, is there a point where you say, what's your commitment at that, is what I'm asking?
We're gonna work hard, like the council meeting, probably won't be the second week of February, I think something like that, and we've got to know ourselves.
Yeah.
Set a budget, and I'll speak for myself, we hadn't talked about that specifically, but, yeah, we need to have it decided by then, no later, and, when we present to town council, they need to know what's going on.
Yeah, because I would hate to see this in the middle of construction, like we were talking about the other way, and you say, oh, 10 more million and or just get out of it and save 5. That's a real question that I think the council will need to know and make sure that your finances are available for that too. Because
Financial work out. Well, if it doesn't cost any more than that. The steel's gonna have to be put up anyway, if we do, it would be a different location. What the structure guy says, the only way to do that is put big piers on the outside of the building big I-beams up and dig piers down inside the old foundation. And that way we don't take the load off the old building.
Yeah.
And then and then if we can protect that little, entryway or
There.
lobby area, then we do it that way. We think we can, but after I talked to Skip Green today, Green Construction, every time I talk to anybody about it, they scare you to death, and, because it's like throwing money down the rabbit hole after a while, and it's just not feasible, and I'm afraid it's headed that way, but we don't know, but it's gonna be the same structure, whether we say that or not. I don't think Brent suggested take hundreds of pictures of that lobby, and if we don't get the same, we can recreate it right there with the same moldings. It'll look just like it, but it may not be the same, but it will look just like it with all enough pictures and.
Because we intend to operate the hotel, of course, we've got a projection of revenue and expenses and what it'll make a return. You gotta match that against what you put in the place. Your question's exactly on point. So then the comparison is to do this preservation of whatever of the lobby compared to brand new just construction. I mean, John's giving us numbers on just go in there and build the thing we showed you, build it without trying to preserve stuff. And then you look at how much more do you have to spend to try to preserve. And as long as you don't get too heavy there, you can do it. So I think the bottom line answer to your question is, if we get to unless we make a foolish mistake, if we get to the point where it looks too big to try to preserve, then we got to default to recreate, refresh, what was the word? Revive.
Reimagine.
And still come back to what we showed you, you know. That's the game plan. And yeah, there's a little more risk, not just a little bit, there's more risk in doing it that way, because we'll spend money on engineering and architectural and one day look at it and say, gosh, it works or it doesn't. So we're going to put some money in that we don't get back on that side of it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
I mean, you asked exactly the right business question.
Yeah. I've got the answer, let's say it that way. I just hope in February when you present it to the
We've talked about
council.
things like we want to run a shuttle to Main Street and out to the Bass Lake. That'd be kind of one of the amenities. We've talked to the one restaurateur who's gone a long ways with us, having his architect lay out the bottom floor. We've talked to him about a lot of different things we want to try and think about doing. So yeah, we're going to have to maximize the revenue there to afford all this, but we want to make money on it too, sure.
Thank you.
All right, somebody ready for a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept
With the two conditions.
two conditions.
No sidewalk to be required along Green Hill Road.
Right.
And allow density up to 6 dwelling units per acre.
Second.
Second, Woody. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None? Unanimous? Any other business, Kevin?
I will mention that next Wednesday, we still have a drop-in session scheduled for our downtown subcommittee here from 4 to 7. Taylor and Brian have been working really hard. I hadn't really done much of anything. I let them do it. But they have set up some boards that we can use, and I think it'll be good. We do have a survey that's still online on the town website. As of earlier this week, we had well over 200 responses, which is really good. I don't think we got that many for the comprehensive plan. We did it 10 years ago. So really good outpouring of comments, and they're all over the place, as they should be. But I just want to make a reminder of that. That's coming up next Wednesday here, and it's 4 to 7. So it's kind of one of those floating showers, come in when you want. But I think we will gather up and have some things said, maybe at the top of the hour at 5 o'clock and maybe again at 6, but just let people come in and be involved. Okay? That's all I got.
Good. Please go online and fill out the survey.
Yes.
No other business, call the meeting.
Sure.